family, and welcome back to the African Exodus show. I'm your host, Tierney Cherie, here to you with a new video. Before we get started, I have to remind you all, please do add yourself to my Telegram channel. That way you can get notifications from me anytime I post a video, or if there's anything I want to share with you all, I could post it there. Also, if you want to message me, that's the best place to message me as far as me responding promptly. So please do add yourself there. The link to the channel is down below in the description. But with that, let's get started with African and world news. Another West African coup, this time in Gabon. You know, it's funny, just last week I told you all that it looked like the ECOWAS was not going to immediately invade Niger because there were some holdups as far as the bureaucracies of the individual countries, and that there would probably have to be something that was going to tip the scale. Something else would probably have to happen in order for the ECOWAS to act, and it looks like the desired thing just happened. Gabon's military coup has overthrown a powerful political dynasty. Here's what to know. A military coup thrust the Central African nation of Gabon into turmoil Wednesday, unseating a president whose family had held power for more than a half century, just minutes after he was named the winner of a contested election. Ousted President Ali Bongo Ondimba, also known as Ali Bongo, has faced accusations of election fraud, corruption since he began ruling the oil-rich but poverty-stricken nation nearly 14 years ago. Let's never get used to that. The fact that Africa is so rich, the fact that a country like Gabon is rich in oil, or a country like Niger is rich in uranium. Let's never lose wind of the fact that these rich countries are always stricken with poor and the people are always suffering. Now it says, following the coup, residents in the country's capital were seen celebrating and embracing soldiers on the street. Much remains uncertain, with Bongo reportedly under house arrest. His son is arrested. All the borders are closed and the government ostensibly shut down. International leaders have expressed concern and condemnation of the coup, some warning their citizens in Gabon to shelter in place. Now, this is still very early, so we haven't seen anything come out as far as whether or not the people in Gabon are going to express anti-French sentiment. I predict that's what's going to be expressed because that's what we have seen happening consistently with all of these coups. And we haven't seen any verbiage coming out about kicking out any of the imperialist nations, but I suspect that's also going to be the case. Now, who is the person who is now considered the president of Gabon? Let's talk about him. Who is General Oligui Nguema, Gabon's new strongman? His unit, army colonels, regular soldiers, and others announced in the early hours of Wednesday that they were now in charge. Nguema is one of the most influential figures in Gabon. As the son of a military officer, he walked in his father's footsteps. He trained at Morocco's Royal Academy. Oligui Nguema used to be very close to Ali Bongo's father, the late President Omar Bongo. When Ali rose to power in October 2009, Nguema was sent to Morocco and Senegal for a diplomatic mission officially to keep him away from power reports have claimed. When he returned to Gabon, he took over as the head of Secret Service. Then in 2019 was appointed the head of Republican Guard, an elite unit in charge of the president's security that vows him loyalty. During the 55 years of the Bongo family rule, officials, which includes General Oligui, have been accused of plundering the coffers of the oil-rich nation, as is always the case when you have an oil-rich nation and the people are impoverished. In France, 9 members of the Bongo family are under investigation, and some face preliminary charges of embezzlement, money laundering, and other forms of corruption, according to French NGO Sherpa. So who is this guy? Obviously, if he's accused of embezzlement, that should be a red flag. And so let's just talk about this coup in general then. The coup in itself, another West African coup, another after a string of West African coups. We have the same commonalities. This is a French-speaking African country, otherwise called a Francophone country, a country that has historically been close to France. It has the CFA franc currency. These are the countries that we've been rallying behind in recent years, understanding the colonial relationship that exists between them and France. So they have that commonality. What's the other commonality? They also are having a coup being done by an army junta once again. So what is up with this as far as these army juntas who are just committing mutiny? Are you of the opinion that the armies inside of African countries are so close to the people as far as having revolutionary stances? I don't have that opinion personally. I think it takes really revolutionary individuals who take those types of steps, and they typically aren't going to be found inside of the army. So that's another thing that we see happening again. We have not heard whether or not France will be ousted, but I suspect that that's also going to be another commonality with this country as it has been with the other countries. So you can kind of guess where I'm leaning with this. But we have not heard, as opposed to the other countries, that the United States is closely aligned as far as having trained this particular officer. I would not be surprised if they have. But what we have heard is that this officer does have relationships with the United States. So let's talk about that right here. Now, again, his name is Oligu Nguema. It's going to probably take me a while to get this name right, but we're going to keep practicing. He is also known to be a multi-millionaire. Okay, so let that settle in. Everyone who might be so happy thinking that this is something that's happening for the good of Gabon, a country that is poverty-stricken, the people are suffering. I'm going to talk to you about the currency in a moment, the CFA franc. But this country of Gabon is being led now by someone who's a multimillionaire. That's another red flag. He has been involved in an embezzlement affair and having links to drug circles of the South American Ivorian cartels. This is according to Wikipedia, someone who has been involved with the South American Ivorian drug cartels. That's obviously another red flag. His background: he studied at the Meknes Royal Military Academy in Morocco. He served as the aide-de-camp to the president until his death, President Omar Bongo. Then he served as a military attaché at the Gabonese embassies in Morocco and Senegal. In October 2018, he was recalled to Gabon, where he replaced Colonel Frederick Bongo at the head of the intelligence service of the Republican Guard, the Directorate General of Special Services. Then in 2021, he notably restarted Operation Mamba. He took over the head of the Gabonese Republican Guard in 2020, replacing General Gregory Kuna, a cousin of the president Ali Bongo Ondimba. He significantly reformed the Special Intervention Section, a special unit placed under the direct authority of the president, increasing it from around 30 to more than 300 elements. He also composed a song, which is very interesting. The song has the line, "I would defend my president with honor and loyalty." Now, this is something that you should highlight and emphasize. According to a 2020 Organized Crime Corruption Reporting Project investigation, he owns several properties in the United States worth more than $1 million. These properties are in different places in the state of Maryland, including Hyattsville and Silver Spring, some very pricey things. And also, he helped expand Bongo's overseas businesses. Asking about these dealings, because he was asked about these dealings, is it true that you have these properties in the United States? He said it was a private affair. So I want you to have a visual. So this is a public official who's a multimillionaire, and he is such a multimillionaire that he has properties in different countries, including the United States, which how did he get the ability to purchase in the United States? That's one curiosity. And the properties in the United States, I think they said he had 3. The worth of them accumulates to something about $1 million. Now, if you understand the difference in the currencies between the US dollar and the CFA franc, this is just from a quick Google search. One CFA franc is 0.001657 ... a bunch of numbers compared to the US dollar, meaning $1 is worth 603.2 29 CFA francs. $1 worth that much. Imagine that money that he has being used for the people in Gabon. Big difference, right? So I'm trying to paint the picture that this is probably not someone who has the best interest of Gabon, and this is probably someone who has close affiliations with the United States government. This is probably someone who has been working and talking to the United States government prior to instigating this coup. This is someone who, as I laid out, has a long military history, and we should know that militaries in Africa are funded by who? Mostly the U.S., with some other contributaries. Obviously, this is a Francophone country, so they have had France contribute, but their militaries are Western imperialist militaries. These are not independent juntas. They're not independent militaries, so that has to be emphasized. So I say all this to say, something's up. If you don't understand like the pattern that is happening, this is not something that's happening naturally. Absolutely, the people of Africa deserve better. Absolutely, the people of Africa are angry and sick of corruption. But if you think that a string of military juntas are happening in West African countries that speak French, and all the militaries that are sold out to the Western imperialist powers are all becoming revolutionaries overnight, despite the fact that they have long records of working with the U.S. government, despite the fact that they have millions of dollars coming from who knows who. If you think that this is all a coincidence, then I really urge you to do some more digging, learn about the intelligence state, learn about how the CIA operates, learn about how coups are instigated by the United States government, and understand that this is for a bigger purpose. So if you don't know that purpose, let me just say it again. They're trying to instigate a proxy war in Africa, and that's going to be the vehicle through which they use, allowing the U.S. to directly fund a military operation that's going to involve, I'm very sure, trying to get China and Russia out of the continent. That's my prediction. But with that, we will go to the next story. Very sad story for our people in the United States. 3 people were shot dead after a white gunman decided that he wanted to target Black people in Jacksonville, Florida, officials say. 3 people were killed Saturday in a racially motivated attack after a gunman targeted Black people at a Dollar General store in Jacksonville, Florida, in one of the several weekend shootings that again shocked America in public places, from stores to the football games to parades. This shooting was racially motivated, and he hated Black people. This is coming from Sheriff T.K. Waters. Waters said that the shooter, who he described as a white man in his 20s, shot and killed himself after the attack. The suspect left behind what the sheriff described as three manifestos outlining his disgusting ideology of hate and his motive in the attack. It's so funny to hear that he's 20 years old. I specifically remember a certain Oprah Winfrey making a comment that America would no longer have racism after the basic current generation died out, thinking that, oh, if you just get rid of the old people, then racism will not exist. Clearly, people don't know what they talk about when they think that. Racism is not something in the United States that's just created from people who learn to just don't like people. It goes deeper than that, because the institutions of the United States are propagating this ideology in order to maintain power, not just over us, but in the entire world. Racism allows them to do something like instigate coups in Africa and do invasions in other places where our people are. So racism is a part of the U.S. DNA. Now it goes on to say, Waters said the shooter told his father by text, check his computer. The father found the documents described by Waters as manifestos and called authorities, but Waters said by the time authorities were alerted about the manifestos, the gunman had already started the attack in the Dollar General. The shooting started shortly after 1 p.m. ET, blocks away from Edward Waters University, a historically Black school where students living on campus were told to stay in their residence halls. Waters said the gunman was seen on the school's campus before heading to the Dollar General. No one was injured on the campus. He took the opportunity to put his bulletproof vest on outside and to put his mask on outside, and then proceeded to the store where he committed this horrible act. Edward Waters University official said the shooter was turned away from its campus after refusing to identify himself. The individual returned to their car and left the campus without incident, and the encounter was reported to the Jacksonville Sheriff Office by the security. all thanks to Yah that the security guard who was there stopped the attack on the campus, but still very tragic that 3 people did lose their lives at a Dollar General somewhere where everyone would pop into a Dollar General, not even thinking that they're about to lose their lives. So the question is for our people, once again, in America, dealing with the racist ideologies that are, again, in the fabric of America. I've always said there's never going to be a day where this is not a part of the American equation unless you destroy the nation and start from scratch. And I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. So the ideologies that are being paraded and taught to people, ingrained with them, doesn't have to be on TV. Understand, these things are being taught to people from their family members, being taught to people who learn to understand the power dynamics inside of the world, being instilled inside of people. So these ideologies are always floating around. Therefore, us letting our guard down should not be a part of an option for us at this point. We have to understand that we are in a state of war. We've always been in a state of war. We've been in this state of war that's gone through moments of passivism or pacification, basically trying to get us to put our guards down. And then we've been inside of moments of amplified war. Understand that the war has always been going on, and so never feel at peace until you see something that makes you feel like peace is there. So never feel like you don't have to think about what's going on in your surroundings, because again, this is a society that is created for this exact purpose. So certainly prayers to the families who have suffered this senseless attack. And we unfortunately have to keep reporting on these because it just seems like it will keep happening. So with that, let's go to the next story. Haiti has descended into chaos, according to the State Department. And don't believe them, but this is what they say. U.S. citizens in Haiti are being urged to get out. The State Department on Wednesday said, given the spiraling violence and infrastructure challenges, American citizens should depart Haiti as soon as possible via commercial or private flights. The warning comes a month after the State Department ordered the departure of non-emergency personnel and their eligible family members from Haiti. And at that time, too, U.S. citizens were urged to get out. So this is the second urging to get out. Since then, the situation has worsened, with human rights groups recording new deaths in Port-au-Prince and the Artibonite Valley, and the displacement of thousands due to escalating violence by armed forces. The new alert on Wednesday is yet another sign of how quickly security is deteriorating, especially in neighborhoods of the capital that are increasingly being overtaken by gangs. On Monday, residents in Tabar, sites of the U.S. Embassy, awakened to heavy gunfire, with residents saying it sounded like a war. In a notice, employees at the U.S. mission were warned to remain on the compound of the embassy and nearby residential housing until further notice. They were also prohibited from traveling between the two. Others were told to avoid the area of the U.S. Embassy and residential compounds. Now, the reason I said don't believe them when they say are urging people to get out of Haiti is not because what's happening in Haiti is not urgent. First of all, there's activities that are happening in Haiti, but understand that these things are being stoked by the United States. I'm very, very positive. The idea that these gangs are just out here without taking directions from the intelligence state tells you that if someone tells you that, they don't understand the intelligence state. They create the issue in order to give the solution. That's literally how they're able to exercise dominion over the entire world. So it's not that it's not a dangerous situation there, but it's really that clearly Joe Biden has ulterior motives in trying to push for people to flee Haiti, because if he was so concerned about the people of Haiti, he would be probably trying to allow asylum, right? That's something that would be given to people who you're concerned with, theoretically. But it says, despite the security situation, the Biden administration continues to deport Haitians to the country. Immigration advocates said that they received word that 66 Haitian nationals were scheduled to be returned on an immigration and customs enforcement flight to Port-au-Prince on Thursday. So it's so horrible that you're sending these people back there without any regard for their lives. Since October, the United States and the head of the United Nations have been trying to get a country to lead a multinational force into Haiti to help quell the violence Last week, a delegation from Kenya visited Port-au-Prince. So far, no official announcement had been made about whether that country will go ahead and offer help. I'm sure they will. The United Nations has said that more than 2,400 Haitians have been killed this year by gang violence and 900 others have been kidnapped. The recent gang attacks have also forced the displacement of at least 5,000 people from Carrefour Fuelles, which is if controlled by gangs, will provide access to other middle-class communities, creating a new kidnapping route for gangs. Dire situation, but like I said, it's being stoked by the state. So they're doing this all for a purpose of an intervention. They're basically creating a narrative that's going to allow them to come into Haiti with guns blazing and do what they have done historically. So it's important for you to know that the U.S. is still, even though you might hear things go out of the news cycle, understand that the U.S. is still very much invested in trying to force an invasion inside of the Haitian country. So definitely our thoughts and prayers to our people there. Let's go to the next story. So BRICS has actually grown, if you do not know. I'm sure you should have heard, though, that Ethiopia joined BRICS. And this not only has grown them as far as numbers, but it's also grown their GDP. So I wanted you to listen to this and understand the dynamics of what's happening in the world. BRICS GDP to grow by 36% following expansion. The gross domestic product of BRICS is now 36% of global GDP. And 47% of the world population. This follows the announcement of the 6 nations to the BRICS bloc. They said they decided to invite Argentina, the Arab Republic of Egypt, Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Islamic Republic of Iran, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates to become full BRICS members. So, of course, this happened last week, and a lot of people have been talking about how major this is. I do want you to understand as a comparative that this is pretty major. So when you understand the GDP of the G7, and that's who BRICS was really supposed to combat, created to combat, the fact that you have these 7 countries that come together every year and they plan the world. Now they have other Gs like the G20, for example, but the G7, that's really where the power lies. And so they come together every year. They plan what's going to happen in the world. They plan what's not going to happen. And so the G7, and here are the nations that are a part of it. If you're wondering, you have, of course, the United States, you have Japan, you have Germany, the United Kingdom, France, Canada, and Italy, countries that we historically have thought of as being allies. Well, they currently represent 43% of the world economy. Now, here's interesting. This is down from 70% 3 decades ago. So within 30 years, they've lost almost 30% of their control over the world economy. And in addition to this, they also only represent, in terms of population, the bloc is even less representative, it says, with its member countries accounting for less than 10% of the world's people, according to the latest estimates. So it's an interesting comparison. BRICS now controls, they said, 36% of the world's economy and represents 47% of the world's people, whereas the G7 now only controls about 40%, 43 to 40% of the world's economy and only 10% of the world's people. So certainly a clash is going to happen, because if you think the G7 or the countries of the G7, most notably the United States, the country with the biggest intelligence monster in the world, is going to go down without a fight, you are heavily mistaken. But with that, I will wrap this up for this week. I thank you all for watching. I'll see you on the next video.
How you design those programs. In all of the programs that I attended, all of the education that I had, college, public, and otherwise, nobody ever told me that I was an African woman. Nobody ever told me what the history of African people were. Nobody ever told me that America is business, and without business you will have nothing and be nothing. And nobody ever told me how to organize business so that I would be able to develop institutions in my own community. So now the sincerity of all of the programs and all of the education has to be questioned, indicted, and convicted, because the bottom line is that America is not and has never tried to produce African adults who are functional, self-sufficient, who understand their politics, their economics, and their relationship to the world politics and the world economics.
American side with the NAACP, the Urban League, and the traditional We Shall Overcome civil rights leaders of the 50s and 60s that have been all but abandoned and ignored by younger people, Sister Soldier included.
I think that the dice are loaded, and that's what's left out of Mr. Brown's piece. See, there was a period of time in this country after Reconstruction where African people owned a lot of land, owned a lot of businesses, and did a lot of things. But what happened was the American government, the Ku Klux Klans, and other organizations organized in smashing that effort. So it's not that we haven't tried to own lands and have not organized businesses. It's that if you are African in America, or in Latin America, or in the Caribbean, or in the continent, you will be hunted no matter what you do, because they do not want us to survive and become self-sufficient. And you can say no, but you haven't lived this life. You haven't lived this life.
To be happy. I'm talking about that. All right. Now, to paraphrase Senator Bradley of New Jersey, the state from which your piece was.
Senator Bradley gets much right when he talks.
He does, and he, among other things, and he's not claiming to be particularly original with the observation, we can't get there unless we go together. I have a terrible feeling that behind me are some people who do not agree.
Senator Bradley of the all-white United States Senate said we can't get there unless we all go there together. Sorry, none of us are where he is. That's number one. Number two, you're making a moral appeal to a country that doesn't have a moral conscience. The question becomes that when white people feel serious and angry and upset about abortion, they come out in the thousands up to the millions to say, this is what we believe about abortion. Where is the white outcry against white racism that murders African people all around this entire globe? It doesn't exist. So who are these white good people? I want to meet them. I want to see them. I feel it's not enough.
But that might be all we can get.
No. And guess what? I don't work with all I can get. What I work with is what I have. Listen, you have to have some confidence in the power of African people amongst ourselves to establish a foundation. We have utter chaos in our cities, and you've got to say that. You can have a program. I'm not saying we built a lot of institutions, and those institutions have not been effective. The majority of millions of African youth in this country are dying mentally, dying spiritually, dying emotionally, dying academically. And you may have a program, Mr. Brown may have a program, but what we got to talk about is an American government that tracks millions of African people who don't go to your program, don't go to Brown's program. Millions of African people, not only here, but all around the world. And if we are not honest enough to say who are our friends, who are our enemies, to know what a friend is, to know what an enemy is, we will constantly be trying to get into people's parties, to shake our butts with them, to get them to like us, and that's not the question. The question is, what can we build amongst ourselves to secure ourselves from our enemies so that we will be able to survive into the future?
Mayor Kelly.
It's enough to know that if I walk out Washington, D.C. tonight, some black kid in Washington, D.C. is blowing up another black kid's head for a pair of sneakers because the institutions that we're talking about, not the things that we hold up and say, look, this is one example. The institutions that we're talking about are not saving the minds of those African children. That is the honest truth. None of these Negroes saved me. None of these Negroes saved me. None of them. Listen, you know who saved me? A man named John Desane in Inglewood, New Jersey, who told me who I was, who showed me my history, who told me who my enemies were, who let me know that this was not an easy world, who let me know that this was a cold environment, who let me know what he's not a part of is dilly-dallying with the minds of African children and letting them know what the real situation is in America.